What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host, Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and special guest, Alex Williams. Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Good.
You're our first guest on the show.
He's not our first guest on the show. We've had a previous guest. Chris, stop forgetting our previous guest. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
First the worst, second the best. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
All right. So, Alex, tell us a little about yourself. What do you do?
I'm a freelance content creator and curator for a few different companies. I'm a social studies education student in Idaho. Not from Idaho, though. I'm from Canada. And I'm an optimist, and I'm a podcaster, too. So that's fun.
That's definitely handy.
You're a lot of things.
I am a lot of things.
Also, social studies is definitely one of the knowledge gaps between us engineers on our side of the table.
And that's why you contacted me. I'm somewhat of an expert. Not really.
It actually took us a while to get together because I think I put out the message that we were looking for guests in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, you responded, and then I broke my ankle for 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, but this timing actually works out perfectly. This has been my quietest week since pretty much December, so.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, you're in school right now, so school is just getting out, right?
Actually, yeah, so the system they have here is weird. I don't get out of school until July 24th.
July 24th, that's late. Yeah,
they have a 3-semester system, and I'm on the spring semester is what they call it.
Oh, yeah. Our college did that, except it was 2 main semesters, and then the summer was split into 2 tiny semesters. So there was 4 semesters in a trimester formation. But they acted like they had 2 semesters, and then the 2 bonus semesters.
Yeah, because Marcus and I both went to Northeastern University, which has a 5-year program. So they do it weird.
Interesting. Yeah, we have 3 full semesters, and then we have this little 6-week semester in the summer in August.
I wonder if you could do your whole degree just only in the 6-week semester, because that seems like the easy one.
Right? Yeah, you'd think it'd be easy, but then you're cramming everything in there, and only certain classes are offered then anyways, so kind of a bummer.
Plus, every time I have to learn something very quickly, like a 6-week thing, it just immediately goes out of the brain.
It does not.
2 minutes later.
I do not retain any of it.
No, you don't really expect to.
Much like things on this show.
Yeah, exactly like all the facts we learn on the show that they sieve out into the ether, back where they belong.
I definitely don't remember anything from the first 10 episodes.
No, you know what? And in researching all the stuff for this show this week, I saw a lot of videos on YouTube that said I had already watched it. Didn't remember a single thing from it. I'm like, cool, I learned this once.
Oh my god. I still think the deepest rabbit hole we went down on as far as watching YouTube videos for this podcast was definitely our we did cereal mascot fight where we had a bunch of cereal mascots that fought.
Right, yeah.
And you could gain an advantage in our hypothetical fight by watching more commercials to find out more powers that your mascot might have. So I watched every single Burger King commercial from 1960 to 2015.
The problem is an entire month afterwards is just only suggesting commercials to you.
Oh yeah. And then all you eat is Burger King.
That's how they get you. Once you watch all their commercials, that's how they get you.
That's a secret ploy of the Absurd Hypotheticals podcast.
Exactly. But speaking of podcasts, I did listen to an episode of yours, Alex, for the My Wax Museum podcast, which I definitely thoroughly enjoyed.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I listened to a couple of them too. I think you interviewed someone from Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I did. She's actually awesome, yeah. So she's making a podcast for the school, so I was training her how to host somebody. It was interesting, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about My Wax Museum.
So My Wax Museum, I created last year in 2018 because I realized how bad of a listener I was and how much talking I did compared to other people. So
and so after going into podcasting, where I could talk all I wanted with nobody to say no.
So I was like, okay, I gotta practice listening. I gotta have an excuse to just sit down and just listen to people. And going up to people and saying, hey, can I just listen to you for an hour? Might not play as well as saying, hey, I'm doing this podcast where I just hear people's stories and learn from them, and I'd love to have you on that. And so that's what I started to do. I just decided, let's roll with it. Let's sit down. Let's just ask people questions. And it's been really cool. I think I have done 46 interviews now, and 44 of them are up right now. And I've learned a lot about a lot of different people. And basically,
that's a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, right. And I mean, listening to them for an hour about their life stories, just forgetting completely about my own stories. Even if I think, oh, that's something I relate to, that's something I have a story about, I put my story aside and I just ask them more questions about them.
Oh, I could not do that. I would. I could not do that podcast for 1 minute.
It's been hard. I've really had to work at it. I think I'm starting to really get the feel of it though, after a year and a half.
Yeah, because what is you want to connect to those people.
Yeah.
By being like, I had a similar experience. Listen. Right. And then now I'm talking. And now I get to talk all I want.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's my podcast. I'm going to say everything I want to. And that doesn't go over well. And so it's been interesting to see how people who have come on the show leave saying, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's just because I let them talk the whole time.
It was really cool, and it hit me. It was very personal. I wasn't sure what to expect going in, and it felt like I really got to know these people, and the way the conversation kind of like just naturally evolves. It's really something to listen to. So I would recommend anyone listening to this show, go listen to that show, unless your name is Alex, in which case you listen to your other podcast, which is just called Alex, where you just talk about people named Alex.
Yeah, so I do it with my little sister, Alandra. And we just talk. We're trying to figure out the format of it. We talk about people named Alex. We talk about Alex-related things. Alex is in the news, and also just kind of generally positive things is what we're trying to inject into it. Just kind of as a nice way to keep in touch, as well as kind of a gimmicky thing, because she and I basically have the same name. You add an EX in her name and it's Alexandra.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Yeah, and she has the girl version of my middle name too. So
what you're saying is your parents didn't dig very deep in the baby naming book before settling on one?
No, they didn't.
Like Aardvark, Aaron.
It could have been
Alex
anything. Could have been anything. And we got the same name.
So my curiosity, the reason I brought up my curiosity is how many other people do you know named Alex? What is your sustainability on this show?
Okay, I know so many people named Alex. There's this thing when, I don't know if Marcus's have this or if Chris's have this, but when an Alex meets another Alex, there's this bond that instantly forms. And it's just the coolest thing.
I have met, I think an actual 0 Marcuses that I've said more than hello to.
Really?
Are you serious?
That's surprising.
I've met a couple Marks, but there's no Marcus connection. But actual other Marcuses, just none.
Really?
See, Chris is such a common name that I think whenever I meet a Chris, I'm more resenting them because now I get confused with if someone says Chris.
Right. I think Alex is just in that sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is a pretty popular name too.
Yeah, maybe it's just we have a different disposition about people with the same name.
Yeah.
It's the Goldilocks zone of name being uncommon enough that it's like a cool thing when you find someone, but also not so rare you'd never see them. Of which me and Chris, I guess, are the opposite extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look at this. We're like a perfect spectrum here.
But, I guess we probably should get eventually to our podcast here.
Probably. I mean, that's the idea. That's why I'm here.
So the question for this week on Absurd Hypotheticals is, what if birds didn't exist? Chris, I'm going to let you start this one off.
Yes, so this question is pretty straightforward. Just all birds don't exist. And I specifically looked at food because obviously we eat a lot of birds. poultry is actually the second most eaten meat in the world at 30% of all meat. And that's just behind pork at 38%.
Oh, interesting. I was going to say beef, but God, it's clearly I know nothing.
I was surprised that pork was so high, actually. But I actually thought chicken was going to be number one, but I guess not. Yeah, so 16 billion birds are raised for consumption every year, which is a lot of birds.
It's like 2 birds a person.
That's insane. Is that birds total or just chickens?
That is birds total.
Okay.
So yeah, including all poultry.
That's nuts.
So obviously poultry includes chicken, turkey, ducks. There's some weird out of there, like obscure meats too.
Can you eat ostriches or just their eggs?
I think you can eat ostriches. I think it's like an exotic meat that you can buy at some places.
Australia, maybe.
Probably. But by far the most popular form of poultry is chicken. And chicken is actually like extremely popular just like in food overall. So I found some stats from Grubhub. They released some stats in 2015. And chicken was the most ordered food item in 2015 at 30%. So like all of the orders that they received were some form of chicken. And that was over Chinese food, which was 15%, and pizza, which was 12.5%.
Holy cow.
Which, yeah, I thought that was very surprising because, like, your go-to delivery is either Chinese or pizza, usually.
Well, the thing is, does it count a chicken dish in, like, General Gao's chicken? Does that count as chicken and Chinese?
Yeah, I wasn't clear about that. I think it means, like, chicken wings or, like, boneless chickens and stuff like that. Boneless
that
chicken
makes
wings.
Sense. I do like ordering myself some wings from Grubhub. Ooh.
Yeah. And then they had more stats from 2018 more recently, where they made a top 10 list of items that are getting more popular. And chicken wasn't at the top of that list. The number one was a bean burrito. But of the 10 items on the list, 5 of them were chicken based.
So auxiliarily, it's increasing.
Yeah. So chicken's getting more popular. So like chicken sliders are on that list, chicken burritos. A lot of people eat chicken burritos. I eat chicken burritos all the time. Chicken sandwiches, chicken and waffle sliders, which sounds awesome. I want those. And then chicken parm. So those are the 5 items. And then obviously in addition to chicken and the meat of birds, you also have the eggs. And the eggs are also super, super popular.
I forgot about the eggs.
Yeah. I almost did too, actually, surprisingly. In the US, there are 278 eggs consumed per person in 2018.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's like...
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's nearly an egg a day.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense, because there's like basically no other breakfast food besides pancakes, and you're not going to make yourself pancakes every morning. That's crazy.
And a lot of people eat like 2 eggs at a time. Not a lot of people eat only 1 egg.
When you said eat 2 eggs at a time, I just imagine like just fisting 2 of them, just shoving those boys right in there.
Shell and all.
So
278 eggs per person, and there are like over 300 million people in the US. So that comes out to 91 billion eggs consumed.
Oh, wow.
In 2018, only in the US. So, yeah. So you might be saying, okay, these are all like, it's like meat and eggs, it's all animal products. What if I am vegetarian? Does this affect me that birds don't exist anymore? I could just stick to a vegetable-based diet. And it does affect you. Surprisingly, birds have like they contribute a lot to like pest control. So they save a lot of crops from getting destroyed.
Huh.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so people were noticing this like in the past, and they didn't really study it that closely, but then they wanted to learn more about it, so they started doing some studies. And one of the studies they did was looking at coffee berry borers, which are like little insects. So they would like bore into coffee berries.
Dude, don't say.
Obviously, yeah, name. I actually didn't know that the coffee beans are from berries. I didn't know that.
Wait, is like a berry around the bean?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like the bean is like the pit of the berry.
Oh.
What does the berry taste like?
Know. I have no idea, and I don't know why they don't sell them, but...
They must be atrociously... they must taste atrocious if they won't sell them.
Probably. But yeah, basically the insect, it burrows into the fruit and it makes it unusable, so the farmers can't sell it. And there are no safe pesticides that work on like killing them. They have tried to use like wasps to like deter these insects, but they've only had limited success with that. And really their main predator in nature, there are two types of birds. There's the black-throated blue warbler, and there's the American redstart.
The unsung heroes of the coffee industry.
Yeah.
They're not singing anymore.
Yeah, so basically they eat the insects before they can do any damage to the berries. And they did a study on these birds in a Jamaican coffee farm. It was run by a guy named Matt Johnson, who was a professor of wildlife habitat ecology.
Okay.
And he netted off certain plants in the coffee fields so that the birds couldn't get to them, and then he left some other ones like free. And what he found was that the netted off plants yielded less usable crop because obviously the birds can't get to the insects. So the insects destroy the plant.
Alternate theory, the bugs just really like nets.
Yeah, that is possible. They did not test for that.
That is the problem with science.
Yeah.
You never know for sure.
And what they end up doing now, actually, is they plant mahogany and almond trees around like coffee fields to attract the birds because they like provide a habitat for them. And that actually like encourages the birds to hang around the insects and eat them. So that's how they protect the coffee fields right now. And then coffee isn't the only thing that's affected by this. There's also like wineries. So wineries, there's a winery in Northern California where they put these nest boxes. I don't know exactly what they are, but they're like boxes, I assume, that look like nests. And those attract birds to the vineyards. And then in order to simulate like a pest outbreak, they put out little insect larvae in between the grape plants. And what they found was that in the areas with the nest boxes, 3.5 times more the insects were consumed.
Gotcha.
So birds had a pretty big impact on those crops.
Yeah, seriously.
So now what happens now that we have no birds?
The crops die. So, yeah, they affect coffee, they affect wine and grapes. There are other instances where they affect wheat, potatoes, apples, cranberries. So all sorts of crops. So all those crops are going to reduce. I don't know to like the extent that they're going to like reduce. They're probably not going to be completely gone, but they're going to be very, very much less.
That's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. Definitely bad.
I'm pro more crops, anti less crops in general.
Yeah. So in general, right now at this point in my answer, we have less meat, we have less eggs, we have less vegetable products, just all in general less food. But food isn't the only thing that's affected because we also need to drink water.
Oh boy.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I often just leave myself dehydrated.
And this isn't going to affect all places around the world, but there are certain places where birds play a pretty big impact on the water supply. And one of these places is in Western America, where there are the mountains and stuff. So in the mountains, there's a tree called the white bark pine. And this specific tree protects against soil erosion. It provides shade on the snow so that the snow melts gradually instead of like all at once and just flushing out. And basically just protects the watershed, and the watershed is what provides the drinking water for communities below. So how do birds affect these trees? There's one specific type of bird called the Clark's nutcracker. And this... Yeah, I figured you'd laugh at that, Marcus.
I mean, I'd also just laugh at the word like warbler, so I mean, it's a pretty low bar.
I mean, any like bird name is pretty funny.
Like the blue-footed booby? That was a funny bird name.
Yeah. So this bird is responsible for dispersing the seeds of the white bark pine. And what it does is it opens the pine cones and it plucks out the seeds, it eats the seeds, but it doesn't eat all the seeds. And whatever it doesn't eat, it buries in like optimal growing areas. So that's like the primary way that these seeds are dispersed and how this tree spreads. And they've actually found that this tree is kind of in danger of, like, it's not spreading as well as it could right now because there's what they call mountain pine beetles, which are endangering the trees. And there's also blister rust, which is a fungal disease. So these two things are like damaging the tree.
Oh yeah, you ever see any of those like those tree fungal outbreaks?
Mm-hmm.
I actually haven't.
I was down at the Cape a couple months ago, and they've had some kind of outbreak down there, and just like the whole like forest of trees are just like all fuzzy, like just completely coated in like this green, but clearly not healthy moss, and there's like branches falling off. It's like it's crazy.
Like clearly that's not supposed to be there. Yeah, so there's actually a big like human effort to like manually spread like disperse the seeds. So but this involves like an experienced climber to like climb the mountain and then like take the seeds, and then they have to bring it back down and like germinate it and like do all this lab stuff and then bring it back up and then plant it.
Holy cow. And then hope that it grows.
And then hope that it grows. And obviously that's a lot of work. And they actually calculated that the value of a bird doing this compared to a person, if a bird does it, it saves about $800 to $1,000 per acre. And there are about 14.3 acres of this white bark pine forest. So these birds are saving the U.S. $11 billion.
Well.
Oh man, such savings.
Yeah. So obviously, birds important. Without birds, no bird meat, no vegetable or reduced vegetable products, and in some communities, water is, I guess, goes away or is like hindered somehow.
Water shortage is a word.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Water shortage. Yeah, so birds important.
All right.
That's what I did.
I conveniently came to the same conclusion, actually. Birds are important.
Well, then we don't need to do you. We'll move on. I didn't even talk about birds. Hold on. No, go on.
Okay, so I'll start here now. Okay, so I learned a million cool things. You guys put in so much effort for this podcast. It blows my mind. So the things that I tried to focus on had to do with history. So the way I interpreted the question was that birds never evolved at all. And so we're going to go way, way back. So in one of the videos I watched, one of the many, many videos I watched, the dinosaurs with feathers are what kind of evolved into modern day birds. But it was only a specific group of those dinosaurs, because there were several different species of dinosaurs that had feathers, and most of them went extinct except for the flying ones. So that's why birds are the only animals that fly, and they're also the only animals with feathers. So one thing that I thought was kind of cool is we'd actually be finding fossils with these weird kind of furry things on them, and we wouldn't know what they were because we had never seen a feather before. So that there's one kind of weird change that we would have seen.
Oh yeah, because all you have to do to set up a hypothetical is just that group of flying birds didn't quite make it, and now it's like those other dinosaurs are still there, but now they're gone. Yeah. So we'd still see in the fossil record feathers, just no birds. So this kind of led to a few conclusions I made. I was thinking, okay, where are birds in history? Well, one of the major places is religion. So you wouldn't have angels, though, with the giant feathered wings and stuff. So that's out. That's gone.
What do you think we would have instead?
Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe fairies would be more of a thing, because we'd still have bugs, right? There would still be things that fly.
Right.
So I kind of figured, okay, maybe angels would have more of a fairy-like feel to them, but they wouldn't have feathers, right? The way we depict them.
Right. Sort of like a Tinkerbell situation.
Yeah, that's probably what we might picture them as. And then I also found some interesting things in economics. So apparently there were towns in the Netherlands dedicated to falconry. That was their whole economy.
Wait, how do you have a whole economy on just falcons?
I mean, not their whole economy. There was a baker and, whatever in the town too.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, hi, welcome to Falcon Town.
Would you like a falcon?
Would you like a falcon for dinner, for pleasure, or for hunting? So yeah, they focused on falconry, and they actually shipped falcons all over Europe to go hunting with different wealthy class people and elites. And so that would have changed. People, obviously, they wouldn't know much different because they would have grown up not hunting with falcons since they never evolved at all, which means humans would have had to change a whole lot about the way that they did things. So humans are kind of, I don't know, dumb. Like we have to be hit over the head with a lot of visual inputs, a lot of audio inputs in our environment to make it really clear that, hey, the seasons are changing, right? Or, hey, maybe get out of here, right? When you think of a bunch of humans somewhere, they're hanging out, and then they see the flock of birds fly, right? They get out in a jiffy. So we'd have to be a lot more aware of the predators around us, right? Because we wouldn't have that very clear indication.
Yeah, because I didn't think about how they must have been a very big warning sign, because you basically don't see anything else on the ground.
Yeah,
especially if it's all forested, for example.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like it's going to be hard to see things, especially with humans. The way our eyesight is, it's not as good at picking up those cues as birds are. Humans have 3 types of cones. Cones are the light sensitive cells in your retina.
Gotcha.
And we have 3 types of those. And birds generally have 4 types. And I think apparently pigeons have 5. So they see a whole lot more than we do, including UV light.
Oh no, that's really unfortunate for the pigeons.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if I want to see the UV lights picture of New York City, for example.
Yeah, it's probably steaming with gross chemicals. Because urine reflects UV light and stuff. So, that'd be kind of it'd be different. But so in my theory, without birds kind of having these extra senses for us to rely on, we'd actually, I imagine we'd develop these extra senses ourselves. So it's in 2 to 12% of women, depending who you ask, actually has the 4 types of cones.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
Yeah, which is really interesting because, so apparently if your mother has 4 types of cones, at least from this one video I watched, you are more likely as a male to be colorblind.
Oh.
So they stole it from their kid.
Right? Yeah. I don't.
They steal your clones and give them to your unborn sister.
I'll take that. So,
Blink?
So it's really interesting because most women who have these, though, they don't actually see those additional colors because their brain isn't wired for it. And so they see as though they only have 3 cones or 3 types of cones, but they actually have the 4. And the people who have all 4 types and can use them, they can see apparently over 100 times more colors than normal people.
What?
Yeah, right?
Is there a way to test this? To test if you have it?
So I watched...
Well, you have to... Well, first check if you're a woman.
Right.
Yeah. That's part of it.
Step 1.
So you're out. You're just right out.
And I mean, I don't know if guys can have it. I think that'd be awesome. I did a bunch of those eye tests where you see if you're colorblind or not. I'm not colorblind, but I also don't have amazing, I'm not a tetrachromat, as they call them.
It's usually a spectrum, right? So it's it's not colorblind or not colorblind, but there's in between.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with like a shifting of the cone sometimes, or sometimes the cone is not there at all.
Right.
It just kind of depends, and people can see their eye doctor for that. I'm not an expert. Neither are those online videos, but yeah, so they can see all these different colors. And there was a lady in Australia who said she was always trying to tell people about these colors she was seeing. She's like, walking down just a normal sidewalk, right, with concrete. And she'd say, look at this orange stripe here. And she'd say, look at this and look at that. And people would have no idea what she was talking about. And then finally she went to the eye doctor and he's like, oh, I think you're a tetrachromat. So it's there are people who can see these colors, and I guess they just kind of exist in a world. I mean, it's like trying to explain colors to a blind person, right? It's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't have a frame of reference. Like, I always wonder too, like, if I see the color red, if you see the same red as I do.
Yeah.
Right.
Classic. Not even shades. Like, maybe what you know is red is what I know is blue, and vice versa, but we just still associate it with all the same things.
Right, exactly. And, is there a definite way to tell that? Maybe, but I don't know what it is.
You'd have to, like, map the brain. It'd be crazy. I'll leave that to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'd want you mapping brains. It sounds a little
that might be
dangerous.
It might be irresponsible. What if?
So it's so there are all these different things that would have evolved, and I think hearing would have changed as well, but I kind of focused on eyesight for this one, and I came to the conclusion that gender roles would have actually evolved differently as well. So instead of men just being the hunters that are going out and doing these things, I think women probably would have taken a lot more of a lead in that because of their better eyesight. They'd better be able to spot predators and threats and issues going on in that realm.
Oh yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, we'd live in a world where people can see more colors, maybe even UV light. We'd also, I think, have heightened hearing senses as well. And maybe some more of the senses that the birds have too would be cool. Like being able to see the Earth's magnetic field. And just evolutionarily, a lot would have changed, I think.
So you're saying if birds weren't around, we would be better?
I think so. I think birds are holding us back.
Or dead, yeah. We'd either be better or dead.
Yeah, one of those two.
They never gave us the chance.
I'll take better, preferably.
Although, admittedly, if I was going to steal one ability from birds, it would be the ability to fly. Not that I don't think seeing a couple extra colors is cool and everything, but damn, flying is pretty sweet.
I know. That's what airplanes are for, at least.
That's true. We just have to we can just use our brains to fly. But we can't use our brains to see more than 3 colors because they don't do that right now.
It's too bad. But yeah, that's my conclusion that I reached is we would be better off without birds.
Yeah, I can hear the optimist in your voice. That's rare on this show, optimism.
I figured I'd bring it in.
You're a half full glass overflowing.
Marcus, what did you do?
So I decided to look at the less sexy side of what birds do.
So there goes the optimism.
Great.
And I decided to talk about carrion birds, or birds that scavenge on the dead animals and whatnots. Basically, vultures. Vultures are actually one of the very few animals that are exclusively scavengers. Apparently, for land-based animals, the amount of energy required to find something to scavenge outweighs the amount of energy they would get from it. So almost no land animals actually scavenge exclusively. They're more like opportunistic scavengers, where they'll hunt primarily and then scavenge if they get lucky. Like the coyotes will hunt, but if they see a dead carcass somewhere, they'll go after it.
There are a lot of water-based scavengers, though, right?
Yeah, and the ocean's definitely different.
Yeah.
Because it's less energy for a fish to keep going through the water than
right.
land animals to trek their way through. Interestingly, actually, humans were probably much higher on the scavenger-hunter scale, and our development of long-distance running may have been actually also more for scavenging than, wearing down different prey animals.
Really?
Yeah, because we would be able to, with our enhanced intelligence and our long endurance, be able to scout a lot of areas more efficiently, more quickly, and be able to find all these cool little dead animals around, I guess.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
So my first question was, does this affect the food chain in the fact that what happens if we, like, are birds an important part? So thanks to researcher David C. Houston in his report, The Scavenging Efficiency of Turkey Vultures in a Tropical Forest, which is basically him going around the Barrow, Colorado island and dropping a bunch of dead chickens around and seeing who eats it. The scavengers on that island, in like a typical tropical forest habitat, will actually scavenge 95% of the meat off of animal carcasses.
Holy cow.
So they actually play a much bigger role than I expect. Now, this is not everywhere. In different environments, the vultures aren't the primary scavengers, but in some places will definitely be affected. I also found it pretty cool, the place that the research was done, this Barrow, Colorado island, is actually in the man-made Gatun Lake in the middle of the Panama Canal. So basically, when they dug the canal and flooded it, there was like this big hill in the middle that was higher, and they just left it as an island and made it like a nature preserve, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is way cool. That's interesting.
So I was like, I was looking into like vultures and scavenging and like what might be able to refill that role. But then I got distracted because it turns out it's less of a hypothetical situation. There's actually a real world problem going on right now. So vultures are particularly important in India because Hinduism prohibits the slaughter and consumption of cows. So all the cows in India will die out in the open because they can't be brought to, a place of slaughter. It's like, it's not controlled. So basically in India, what they rely on the vultures to actually descend and take care of the cow carcasses before they start to rot and stink and spread disease and all that.
Do they have to move them to a certain area or something? Or they just leave them where they are?
They leave them where they are, and the vultures actually get to it within a day or two.
Oh, really?
And then they move the skeleton.
Okay.
It was interesting too, because I was reading all these facts about India and cattle and everything, and what didn't agree with Hinduism prohibiting the slaughter is that India is the world's 5th largest beef producer.
What?
Right. I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. I was I was talking to my girlfriend about my answer about how India has all these cattle and they are the 5th largest producer. And wait, they can't kill them. How do they sell them if the vultures are eating them? It turns out India has a whole lot of cows for milk and for raising and all that. But the water buffalo they can kill water buffalo. And their whole beef industry is water buffalo based.
Interesting.
That's an interesting distinction. Yeah.
So that's a fun fact. But getting back to birds, the vultures, they're having a problem over there right now. So one of the antibiotics they give to the cows is something called diclofenac. And what happens is this diclofenac is actually poisonous to vultures. So starting in 1992, when they started using it up till, the data I have is till 2008 was when I had the numbers, the population of vultures declined over 99% in India. So the mechanism of this diclofenac was presumed to be renal failure, or the toxicity may be due to direct inhibition of uric acid secretion, both of which I did not decide to do any more research on and left there as just one sentence in my notes.
Thanks for saving that.
I've learned it's important to save my sanity in some cases. So India does not have these vultures to take care of their cows. And now it's becoming a problem because there are still all these carcasses around, so there are other animals that are coming to fill in the gaps, namely wild dogs. So since the vultures started dying out, the population of wild dogs in India has grown to 18 million, the largest population of carnivores in the world.
Whoa.
Which also, a funny side effect, if that's not already bad enough having all these wild dogs around, it has also led to an increase in leopard attacks because the leopards will invade inhabited areas to follow the wild dogs, which results in the leopards fighting humans. So lots of extra wild dogs and then extra leopards just to top it off.
Bonus leopards.
But the leopards aren't the real problem. It is actually the dogs, because the problem is all these cow carcasses are vectors for diseases such as Ebola, rabies, plague, anthrax.
Yeah, none of that is good.
Nope. So it's not good, but it's okay for vultures because the pH of a vulture's stomach acid can get as low as 1, which is the absolute bottom of the pH scale. So they can swallow all this stuff. It kills all the diseases. They can like dissolve bones and things in their nasty, nasty guts.
Is one basic or acidic?
Acidic. So I'm not quite sure what kind of stomach line they have to survive having a pH of 1 in their body at all, but they have it. So now all these 18 million wild dogs are eating all these carcasses, and the wild dog digestive systems are not so aggressive against diseases, and they will carry the Ebola plague, anthrax, and rabies, but rabies being the main one. So the rise in dog numbers has resulted between 1992 and 2006, so over 14 years, and it's getting worse, so the numbers are going to be even higher now. It resulted in a total of an additional 40 million dog bites on people, which meant that someone is getting bitten by a wild dog in India every 11.1 seconds. And again, if that wasn't bad enough,
those dogs have rabies.
Yeah, they have rabies, and has resulted in casualties of almost 30,000 people a year due to rabies.
Wow.
So it is a legitimate problem, and if there are no birds, it's going to be, well, they basically have no vultures now anyway, so it's a problem, of which I have come up with a solution. So how do we get rid of all these cows without being able to, kill them where we want and having them let them die in the open? My plan is called Cows on Some Grass on a Big Hill by the Sea.
It's a good name. Solid name there.
Descriptive.
So I couldn't find the exact coefficient of friction between grass and cows.
Did you actually try searching that?
I did. I looked at a lot of lists of coefficient of frictions, but the closest I got is grass on tire, which I took as a conservative number because I think tires are going to be more frictious than cows. So based on the cow's average weight of 1,600 pounds, you would need a slope of 20 degrees for a cow to slide down. So my first question was, can cows be on the slope? Will they even deal with it? Will they fall over? Because I feel like they're top heavy. So thanks to Walter Mugler's paper, The Cattle Distribution on Steep Slopes, where he just saw how often cows went up hills on their own. A 20-degree slope is no problem for a cow. So you can have a 20-degree slope, and you can put a cow on it, and then when the cow dies, it'll fall over. And if it's on a hill, it'll slide down the hill. And if that hill is next to the sea, it'll slide into the sea and be taken care of before the wild dogs can get to it.
And be taken care of. Perfect.
Yeah, are these sea cows going to be a problem in the future?
The sea cows, I think they're going to be a bonus to the ocean. So here's the thing. I'll get there. So how much slope ground do we need? And do we even have enough to house all the cows in India? So the amount of cows in India, there's 190 million of them, including 5 million just wild cows that just nobody owns. They're just wandering around, but nobody can do anything to them. So they just kind of wander aimlessly around. So for those 190 million cows, India only has 4,600 miles of coastline, which means you need to have 40,676 cows per mile of coastline. So I was doing some research on how much space a cow needs. And so I was looking if you could just have them freely graze. And so a grazing cow needs 1.8 acres of grassland in order to be fed and happy. So that's 0.00228 square miles. So if you do the math out, basically the area you need to reserve for cows extending back from the coastline is 115 miles.
What?
What?
This would cover roughly 50% of the land area of India. Also, if you do a 20-degree slope for 115 miles, you're already 2/3 of the way to space. So this obviously was not working. So what you do is if you feed the cows, you can do what they call dry lotting, in which case, instead of 1.8 acres, you only need about 600 square feet for actually a happy cow. So they can see other cows, they have enough space to lie down and be comfortable and socialize and all the things that they do. So now for dry lighting the cows, now you only need to cut back 1.4 miles from the coastline, which is entirely doable. So now that we've got our 1.4 miles of slope set up all around India, let's see if our system works. So let's say at the top of the hill, a cow dies, and it starts to slide. This cow will start to accelerate at 0.42 feet per second squared, which is not a lot. To travel the entire 1.4 miles to the sea, it'll take roughly 187.6 seconds. And at that point, the cow will be going 78 miles an hour. Which, okay, that sounds pretty high, I admit. So this is based on very basic, just friction equations. Now, normally what you have to do is at those speeds, you have to start factoring drag force on the cow, which I tried to calculate, but then realized right prior to this recording, I disastrously messed up my calculations thanks to units. But the spherical cows is actually a running joke in physics, where you have some kind of like normal day situation where you're like, okay, so you have a cow and he's doing X, Y, and Z, and you do like a physics problem setup, and then you just say, assume the cow is spherical. So physicists like to joke about spherical cows. In my case, I joke about drag-resistant cows, I guess. So there's going to be some wind force on there. I'm not sure how much it'll slow it down, but I still think you can probably get going at probably a 50-mile-an-hour cow going down.
It's probably still going to be going pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
But we're not quite done, because that's on like a dry day. The coefficient of friction changes when it rains.
Right.
So based on other material interactions, like the difference of their friction between they're wet and dry, we can cut the coefficient of friction by roughly half of between the cow and the grass. So now instead of 0.42 feet per second squared, the cow's going to accelerate at 5.7 feet per second squared. And instead of taking 3 minutes, it's going to be there in just about 50.9 seconds. And by the time it hits the ocean, it is going to be traveling 197 miles an hour. And fine, air friction is a legit thing, but it's going to be fast.
How big of a splash is that going to be?
Oh god, I didn't think to calculate how big the splash is. Now I want to.
If you put like a little ramp at the edge of the ocean, will it skip?
Oh, skipping cows. It's like tipping cows, but better.
I want to find this out. I'm making a note for myself. Will a cow rock skip? I'm just going to do this entirely for myself. I'll let you guys know how it goes. But yeah, there's a couple, admittedly. I mean, that's what I got, but a couple logistical concerns. It's going to be a lot of dirt. You're basically terraforming India at this point. I'm not sure of the logistics of moving the 1,600 cubic miles of dirt that you would need to move to make these hills.
Where are you going to get this dirt from?
India, actually. So India's average elevation is actually not too far off our top elevation. And there's actually some coastal areas that are already kind of the slope we need, and you just kind of have to smooth it out.
Oh, how convenient.
Yeah, it's already set up.
India was made for this.
This is a real life solution to a real world problem. And there will be one last job that we'll need someone to do, and we will need a cow flipper. So cow tipping apparently is not a real thing. So in the movies and all things, they say like, oh, you go to a sleeping cow and like you spook it and you push it over and now you've tipped the cow over and it can't get up and ha 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 ha, which always seemed a little mean to me. But I wasn't around too many cows growing up in New York, and now in Boston, even less cows. But apparently you could not push over a cow even if you tried. Even if you tried with 5 people, even if you tried with 10 people, you probably couldn't push over a cow. And also a cow, even if you knock it over, it can just get right back up. But if a cow is on a slope and it lays down on its side, usually it'll just lay down with its feet facing downhill and it's not a problem. But if a cow lays down and picks the side where its feet are facing uphill, it is no longer able to get up on its own. So you'll need to hire somebody to wander the shores of India, just occasionally flipping over sleeping cows to make sure that they can get back up again.
I don't understand how you took this bird question and decided, I'm going to slide cows down a hill.
Yeah, I could tell you that I did not expect on Sunday morning when I started getting into this solution that I would go from what if there were no birds to doing drag force calculations on cows sliding down hills. But this is why I do the podcast.
I think the important thing is you at least solved a real world problem.
Yeah. Call India right now and propose this. Or just send them this episode.
Yeah. Hello, President of India, I need you to hear this. Although he might just stop after hearing Alex's bit and be like, I have to kill all the birds so I can unlock my third eye.
Gotta become superhuman bird person.
I want to see into the fourth color dimension.
Imagine watching Doctor Strange with all those colors.
That would be
yes.
amazing.
Chris, do you remember the we've covered this animal a few times, the mantis shrimp, the one that punches really good in the water?
Yeah.
It apparently also can see like it has like 13 cones, I think. Like
what?
Just an outrageous number. It's like
so it just sees like everything.
I'm gonna Google it right now. Mantis shrimp eyes.
Mantis shrimp eyes.
Oh yeah, 12 to 16 types.
What do they see? I don't.
Everything.
Everything. They see the Matrix.
Oh my god, there's so many words in this Wikipedia article I do not know.
So many words you're gonna have to Google separately.
Oh god, and half these words are just the species and genuses of the shrimps, which just confuses the whole issue. But yeah, no, animals have crazy eyes. I wish we had better eyes. I wish all the birds had died prior to all this.
Right?
Then we wouldn't have food and vegetables and water.
Well, we can just eat the ocean cows.
Okay.
With that, we'll move on. I think with that, we'll move on. All right, Alex, since
Yes.
you are the guest, I am going to let you give the first answer to our Would You Rather question.
Awesome.
Alex, would you rather sneeze every 10 seconds or yawn every 10 seconds?
Yawn every 10 seconds, hands down.
All right, tell me about it.
Well, okay. Sneezing, you're experiencing a lot of force on your head that whole time. Every 10 seconds, that'd get in the way of a lot of things. So what I would do is when I yawn, you can at least, keep your mouth kind of shut when you yawn so you don't look like a complete idiot all the time.
It's not as satisfying, though, if you don't open your mouth.
That's true. But I imagine that, at least most of the time you can manage this. So most of the time...
you'll just get it on the next one anyway.
Exactly.
Wait 10 seconds and then do the satisfying yawn.
Right.
I would just plan all conversations around that 10-second interval. So everything I had to say would either take 10 seconds or less, or I would just take these deep, long pauses that make me look really smart.
Yeah, what would be the...
You're really thinking about
Very interesting.
what it would be.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the yawn camp too, because not only is, I think, sneezing every 10 seconds probably disastrous for your innards, I also sneeze very loud. For whatever reason, whenever I sneeze, I shout.
There are some people that have a super quiet sneeze. I don't understand how they do it.
Oh, me neither. I don't get it.
I cannot sneeze quietly, and I cannot throw up quietly either. I literally just at the top of my lungs both times. It's very unfortunate.
Have you ever tried to hold in a sneeze? In the middle, not stop a sneeze, but you're about to sneeze, you actually sneeze and you hold it.
It hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt.
It's not good. It's very painful and bad for you. You're gonna blow out an eye socket or something, and then you'll never get to be the birds.
Yeah, so I do see the benefit to the yawn. I think the argument for the sneeze is that the sneeze doesn't take as long. So the yawn is longer. They're usually longer. So you have less time in between yawns.
Yeah, a yawn is what, 1 or 2 seconds?
Yeah, around there.
So that's two out of every 10 seconds you're yawning. Sneezing is instantaneous.
Sneezing's less than a second.
That's true. I can see that.
And also, so yawning, people are gonna if you actually do yawn and you don't hold it in, they're gonna perceive that as you think they're boring. Sneezing, they'll just be like, oh, you had to sneeze, you can't help it.
No, sneezing is, oh, you're disgusting. You're always sneezing on everything.
Yeah, also that.
Or put it back on them. It's sorry, I'm allergic to your face. And then when you sneeze every 10 seconds, that confirms it. You wouldn't do that as a joke for all of eternity. And they would never know, because the only time they see you is when you see them. So you just have to convince everybody that you talk to that it's their specific face you're allergic to.
Well, why? How does that benefit you?
I think it just puts the impetus on them that hey, it's not my problem I'm sneezing. It's your problem. You are what I'm allergic to. You're the problem here, not me and my sneezing.
I guess I would just be scared that I'm driving and I'm sneezing. You won't be able to drive anywhere.
Yeah, I'm sticking with yawning.
Yeah, it's still yawning. So also, isn't when you sneeze, your heart stops for a second?
Does it?
I don't know if that's true.
Hello, Google.
I've heard that. I don't know if it's true or not.
I bet it's myth.
It sounds like an urban myth.
Yeah.
When you sneeze, the intrathoracic pressure in your body momentarily increases. This will decrease the blood flow back to the heart. The heart compensates for this by changing its regular beat momentarily to adjust. So it changes the beat a little bit. It doesn't stop, but it changes the beat slightly. Which I think if you do every 10 seconds is just going to give you like arrhythmia or some other terrible thing. If you haven't just, blown out your esophagus. I'm going to stop talking now.
It does seem it seems like it's leaning towards yawning. And I'm trying to think of if there is a benefit towards sneezing other than the time thing.
No, I think it's the timing, but the timing I think is significant because you can continue a sentence through a sneeze. It's hard to continue through a yawn without yawning the words out, which makes everyone stop listening to you.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if it's because no one did any fake yawns, right? Because I'm starting to feel like I have to yawn. Is talking about yawning make us yawn?
Oh, I've been yawning this whole time.
I've been holding it back.
Yeah, Alex Ray is just living what if you have to yawn all the seconds?
I mean, yawns are contagious, so if you have to yawn every 10 seconds, then people around you will be yawning too. It'll be like a yawning community.
Yeah, join me on Yawner, where we yawn together.
New app. You can yawn together.
Beyond the yawn.
So I think all three of us are on yawn, right?
I think we all agree. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I would rather yawn every 10 seconds.
Yeah, me too.
But, yeah, Alex, thanks again for coming on to the show. Love to have you. I love your deep look into evolution that you did. That was definitely a fresh perspective for what we usually do. And listeners, if you haven't, go pause this podcast or just finish this podcast because it's basically over anyway.
Yeah, probably finish it.
And go and click on the My Wax Museum. And if your name is Alex, go to the Alex Podcast and click on the Alex Podcast instead. And subscribe and listen. And is there anything else you would like to plug at this time, Alex?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of really cool, what I think are really cool projects. If you go to my website, nightworthy.com, that's KNIGHT worthy.com, that's where I keep everything I do, including an Instagram blog about toilet paper called Whenever We Wipe. So that one's one of my personal favorites.
No, tell me about this. You can't leave before you tell me about this.
So I've always loved the idea of going to places and reviewing toilet paper instead of the restaurant or whatever, right? And so now every 2 weeks, I do a toilet paper review on Instagram. And it's called Whenever We Wipe. And I think I get pretty creative with it. I've been to quite a few places, so including a Holiday Inn in California, Red Robin, and some restaurants back home.
What would you say is the best toilet paper you've encountered?
Kirkland toilet paper, hands down. It's the best bang for your buck. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
All right, I'm gonna have to invest in some new wipes over here. All right, if you want to hear us go over more ridiculous questions, join us next week where we answer the following question: what if Earth didn't have a magnetic field?